Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Welcome back, believe it or not, because if you were on Facebook trying to watch this show a minute ago, we have all sorts of problems thanks to Microsoft. Today is September 30th. It's a Tuesday, and we have a really important show planned. But, of course, my Microsoft-based machine decided to download its new, I don't know, every day you get some update. And, of course, it froze while it was downloading, so I had a hard restart the computer, which totally crashed everything. And we could not do the Facebook Live that we wanted to do because Kristen Trombetta is a lot prettier than I am. It would have been nice to have her on the screen next to me. How you doing, Kristen?
Great. How are you doing?
Good. So we couldn't do this a second ago, so give me a 5 count. Count to 5.
4, 3, 2, 1.
One more time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, that's better. Thank you. Okay, so I'm disconnecting. Just so you know, I'm dropping the cameras. It's just taking forever because my computer is just being really difficult.
All right.
And so you're strictly on phone now, so we're all set.
Perfect.
Thanks for being here today, and thanks for putting up with all of this. I literally started this update an hour ago, and it just froze. It said, do not turn your computer off. We're still downloading files. And it's like, okay, when does this become, bailout time? And I went on, I Googled it, and it said, yes, you can absolutely restart your computer. And now my computer is crashed, so I'm sure I'm going to have to do some sort of stuff to it later. Anyway.
Darn it.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. For 13 years, all I did was the podcast. You know what I mean? That's all I did. So the idea that all of a sudden I have to do video, it's nice. I like video. Don't get me wrong. I think we engage different people on Facebook.
Definitely.
But this is really the majority of consumption of my show is the podcast. So as long as we keep doing this, we're in good shape. Anyway, so I had the lovely opportunity to spend time with your darling husband, Derek.
He had so much fun with you.
Yes, and so Ron Penna let us use his Tesla to get around L.A. While we were there.
That's what I heard.
And so one early morning, Derek and I got in the car, and we were going to go to Ron's house, and lo and behold, we couldn't figure out how to get the rear window defogger to come on. This, Tesla is a very sophisticated vehicle, and Derek and I are very intelligent people. Like we can crack codes, we can figure stuff out. We could not get the rear window defogger to defog the window.
Oh my goodness!
And so backing up was treacherous, and I refused to drive. I made Derek drive because I'm such a puss.
That's what I heard.
I'm a puss. I didn't want to be the one to make a mistake, so he handled it greatly.
I would have done the same thing.
So he and I started talking about this topic that we're going to. So one of the things that I've learned personally and from other people is that there's this assumption that all cardio, over time will make you more fit and more conditioned. And one of the greatest indicators, I think that we can all agree, of your level of fitness, conditioning, and readiness is your resting heart rate. We have heart rate variability monitors, our sleep tracker rings track our heart rate, resting heart rate. People brag, my resting heart rate is 46, because that's indicative of a body that is running so efficiently that the heart only need beat 40 times or 50 times or even low 60s a minute. And this is by far, and would you agree, that this is a benchmark by both doctors, the medical orthodoxy, and fitness experts of a person's level of condition, readiness, and fitness? Would you agree with that?
Exactly right. And I think we're just going about it all wrong right now with all the intense cardio and all the intense conditioning and the CrossFit style workouts nonstop. I think it's just wrecking people.
Well, let's tangentially introduce this into this discussion, but we're not going to talk about this any more than this. I know a lot of people who do CrossFit that have ridiculously high blood pressure.
Yeah. Exactly right.
And they're like, I'm talking about young people. I'm talking about people in their 30s. I'm not talking about old guys like me in their 60s. Like guys in their 30s, and they're like, man, my blood pressure is like 220 over 108. And like I train 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. I don't understand it. And I think that we've always been under this assumption that the harder you work, the more conditioned you will become, and the more fit you will be. And then your heart rate should be dropping and things like blood pressure should be dropping. But we're not seeing that, are we?
Not at all. Well, I think the thought process anymore is to do more, to grind more, to go to the gym more. But I think it's really the simple things, the simple, easy, but hard to apply things are the things that will really pay off long term for people. And what we're going to talk about today is one of those things.
So, and we're going to talk about that, but you raised this point. We have so many people out there today who are gurus, who are teachers, who are motivators, and their constant message is go to sleep later, wake up earlier, grind more. If you want to be successful, you got to grind. If you're in bed at 4 a.m., and I don't know if you've heard me say this before on the show, but I blame one movie and one character for this phenomenon we see today. Now,
who is it?
I don't know if you remember the movie Wall Street with Bud Fox was played by who's the guy? I can't believe it. Estevez's brother, the one that went crazy. Emilio Estevez's brother, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen played Bud Fox. And Michael Douglas played a guy that was supposed to be portrayed after Ivan Boesky, the junk bond dealer. His name was Gordon Gekko. Gordon Gekko was a billionaire, very powerful man. Bud Fox wanted to be powerful. He wanted to be wealthy. And Gekko took Bud Fox under his wing. And this one scene where Bud Fox is just waking up in the morning, and I think it was a weekend or a Friday morning or something like that, and Bud was just getting up at like 6 a.m. Wow. And he gets a call from Gordon Gekko, who lives on the West Coast. So that means it's 3 a.m. in the West Coast. And Gordon Gekko is walking along the beach, and he's got an old Motorola 8000 cell phone to his hand, and he's calling Bud Fox, who's just getting out of bed, and he's saying, Bud, man, you're not going to make any money while you sleep. He says, I just got off the phone with China. I've been trading all night long, stocks and I've been trading all night. Dude, you don't make money when you sleep. And I think there was this overwhelming shift in consciousness in our country where people went, oh, damn, if I want to be successful and wealthy, I got to stop sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I haven't seen that movie, but I agree with that. But I think it's so amazing to see actually the opposite then. These people, whether they're working out or whether in business, and they're doing less, but they're reaping more. So it's fun to talk about this.
Yeah, and that's a separate show in and of itself that we could do, because I really do think that the time to grind is passing, and the time to unwind and think and spend more time thinking is really upon us. But that's another story. So we do the same thing with our cardio, right? More cardio, more an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of cardio. I got 36,000 steps today on my tracking device. It's like people are driving themselves into the ground, and there is no finish line either.
Exactly.
So talk about this. Talk about the type of cardio that destroys people.
Well, I think there's the syndrome. It's called chronic cardio syndrome. And basically, if we think about our body, we have our anaerobic energy system and our aerobic energy system. So anaerobic is going to be like our sprints. It doesn't have to be running. It could be on a bike. It's going to be our heavy weightlifting. And we're going to be using more glucose and glycogen for fuel. And then we have our aerobic energy system, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit here. And we're accessing fat for fuel. But basically, people aren't working in either of these zones. They're in these black zones where they're just smashing themselves, and they're on the Stairmaster for like 45 minutes every day all out, and they're wrecking their bodies, they're getting hurt, their hormones are screwed up, and they're gaining weight, and they're not reaping the results that ultimately they want and that they can get if they program things appropriately.
And I have to say, to not acknowledge the difference between men and women is disingenuous by any fitness expert today. We have guys and gals out there who are fitness experts. They write books on nutrition and training and all this. And their attitude is, a woman is, if she's not losing weight, she's just eating too much. She's not moving enough. And the reality is that overtraining plays a role in body composition, and women can become overtrained even easier than men because they're much more complex. They have a factory that builds humans inside them.
Exactly.
Their body is going to protect against certain things because they may get pregnant.
Yep. When I think particularly for women, I think we naturally store a little bit more body fat, and that's, like you're saying, that's how we were built and designed. But then I think we see via social media or whatever it is that we need to be doing this grind over and over again, but things can be tweaked and we can get the great results that everybody wants with the maffetone heart rate, which we'll talk about, and with some lifestyle factors that we can change.
Okay, so let's since you unleashed his name is Phil Maffetone, correct?
Exactly right.
Yeah, I've heard of him before. I just don't know where. I may even have met him. So talk about this approach to cardio that actually does improve conditioning and lower resting heart rate.
Okay, so this is what I love so much. So Phil Maffetone created this, and he calls it the MAF, M-A-F, MAF method. So MAF stands for maximal aerobic function. And basically, it's a sub-maximal heart rate protocol of not exceeding 180 minus your age, and doing this for aerobic bursts of about 30-plus minutes. And it is like a game changer. So he developed it more for the running side of things, but nowadays people are applying it just for overall body composition goals, for health. So a lot of the runners in the past, and a big name with it that preaches this maffetone heart rate method is Mark Sisson. So he was like top of the game triathlete, and he was just digging himself into the ground with training too hard, so overtraining. And he now follows this MAF heart rate protocol, and he has seen just his world shift and change positively.
Well, I also
amazing.
know Ron Penna, who has, Ron gets fixated on certain things that he wants to achieve with his body. And for years, he has been trying to lower his resting heart rate. And Ron is like, the guy's, he looks like a Greek god. I mean, his physique is amazing. His conditioning is amazing. He really is spot on, dedicated to his training. And he would say to me, but I just can't get my resting heart rate down below this or below that. Yeah. And when he started to do this, what we're going to talk about, he said it was the first time that he actually had his resting heart rate start to, and he was skeptical. He told me when he started doing it, he's like, I don't understand how this is going to do anything for me.
Yep. Well, and I think the thing that I love to bring up with this, if we think about our heart, we want our heart to be an endurance muscle. We want it to work as long as we can for us, but what we're doing with this chronic cardio is we're literally building the walls of the heart thicker and thicker, and that's where people are having increased heart rates, and they're having like tachycardia and all of that. So I think if we change the thought process a little bit there, it can help people buy into this maffetone. So it's going to basically help our heart endure longer and work more efficiently for us.
So let's talk about that. I actually had Sabina Scala on my show probably 6 years ago, and she's a strength and conditioning coach for MMA fighters. And she talked about the fact that at that time, HIIT was all the rage, and of course, weightlifting was always a component, strength training. She would insist that her athletes walk at a slow pace, moderate pace, just a casual walk for 40 minutes a day. And she was the one who introduced me to this idea of concentric and eccentric effects of the heart function.
Interesting.
So this is what you're talking about. See, a lot of people think that when the heart pumps, its muscles are engaged to squeeze and eject blood out. And that when the heart expands, it's relaxing. This is a misunderstanding. The heart is like a bellows. If you've ever had to blow embers back into a fire, you know that after you push it closed and blow the air out, you literally have to pull it back open to suck air back into it.
Huh.
And so when you do weightlifting, because of the Valsalva and hemodynamic resistance, the heart has to become stronger at pushing, and so the walls thicken. But when you just casually walk for long periods of time, the heart has to expand wider, and it builds that set of muscle activation where it's actually opening up bigger like a balloon.
Exactly right.
So go ahead, pick up from there and explain how the Maffetone method works in affecting this.
Well, I think to break it down simply for like the general public, I think what is fun to do with this, so number one, it's going to train the aerobic energy system. So it's going to access fat for fuel and allow us to go longer, and eventually our pace is going to drop with this. But I think what is fun for people so they can really see what's happening is to download an app if you're a numbers person like Map My Run, and just go ahead and start applying this using a heart rate monitor. Say you're doing a 30-minute math. It could be a hike. It could be a walk. It might be a walk for a lot of people. It could be a run. It could be a bike. And start doing it 2 to 3 days a week and see how your pace actually improves. And that, I think, just speaks volumes of how it works. Because your pace, give it 4 weeks, is going to improve. So you're going to be able to go longer distances, maintaining that Maffetone heart rate.
So let me get this straight. So let me get this straight. This is kind of how it works, right? So I'm 61 years old. I take 180, subtract a 60. So let's just say 120. So I would get on the treadmill and I would walk at a pace where my heart rate does not exceed 120 beats per minute. Now, my level of perceived exertion, and this is critical that people understand what I'm talking about. My level of exertion to walk and maintain just 120 beats per minute is going to be, let's say, A, okay, for the example. If I do this consistently for, let's say, 2 months, then I'm actually going to have to walk faster in order to keep it at 120.
Yes, and I think a couple things come into play there, like you're mentioning. I think, number one, the range for it is 10 beats within that. So if we're using your 120, you want to stay basically 110 to 120 beats per minute. And then the second piece of this is I think it's actually always smart to warm up for 5 to 10 minutes. You're not just going and spiking your heart rate right to that 110 to 120. And I think that's very individual, obviously, based on age and how often you're working out. And then the third piece that comes into play, and you mentioned it, is that perceived exertion. If you've been doing math consistently, you can let your numbers creep up just a little bit, but listen to your body. If you're really tired, you didn't sleep good, then I would keep your number closer to your 120. But if you're really well conditioned and you're just feeling great and energized, you could bump it up to that 125.
How long do you have to walk at your target heart rate for you to start to see the adaptation occur?
I think 30 minutes is the good minimum, and then obviously you could go up from there, but we don't need to get excessive unless you're training. I apply this a lot for I train people for half marathons, so unless you have like an event you're training for.
Yeah, because I can see what people are going to do, right? They're going to go, "Oh, that's easy. I'll just do it for 2 hours now."
Exactly right.
Because we consistently have shown in the fitness community that if something is good, we do it in excess until it's no longer good.
Exactly right. We ruin it. And then the final piece of that kind of is if you're more metabolically flexible, then your number can bump up that 5 as well. So it's kind of cool. So if you can burn fat and carbs very efficiently, you could bump that number up to 125.
Now, obviously, the goal would be to do this and adjust several times over time. Let's say let's say you start out doing this in the first month, you start noticing, because you're doing it every day, it's just 30 minutes that start out easy. You notice that to hit 120 heartbeats a minute, you literally have to walk at 3.5 miles an hour instead of 3 miles an hour where you started a month ago.
Yeah.
And so theoretically, what should happen in the perfect world is you do this for 6 months and all of a sudden you're literally jogging and your heart's only at 120 beats per minute.
Yep. And that's why I love using Map My Run and tracking your progress, because it's so cool to see that it actually does work. It will work for you.
And so give me some examples of people you've worked with and yourself, as far as they came to you, they had a resting heart rate of 70, which a lot of people wouldn't like. It's not unhealthy, but people like, I want to be like an elite athlete. So they start doing this. They gradually increase how hard they have to work in order to get into that 120. Say after 6 months, where would you see their heart rate?
I think their heart rate could generally drop about 10 beats per minute.
Really?
The application that I see most, like I mentioned, I do a lot of half marathon preps and I do workshops for that, is in their pace. And that overall is dropping their resting heart rate, but they're able to run a longer distance, maintaining that maffetone heart rate. And it's just so cool to see that application. And then speaking individually for myself, I've been doing this about 3 years. And before that, Derek introduced me, so I'm very grateful that he did that. But before that, I was training for marathons and half marathons and the typical struggle of gaining weight. I was still getting fast, but like, why is this not working? But I started applying this consistently 2 to 4 days a week, and my pace got faster and I got leaner. So I was sold.
So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Last week on Thursday, during the Renew Life RX show, I discussed a study that was just published that showed that nutrition and not training modality is what causes overtraining. So not eating enough. You could be training 3 days a week, and if you're not eating enough, you're going to be overtrained. You could be training 2 days, and if you're not eating enough, you're going to be overtrained. And I said during that show that women are most at risk of this because women, a guy goes, wow, I'm up 5 pounds today. He's excited. A girl goes, I'm up 5 pounds today. I'm never going to eat again, is what she says, And so women tend to eat less and train more. And one of the byproducts that they discovered in this overtraining study was that people who were overtrained consistently had more body fat. And that's counterintuitive because you would say, well, they're doing hours of cardio. They're not eating enough. How could they be storing body fat? And because body fat and nutrient partitioning is, yes, it's a function of calories for sure, but it is also influenced by hormones. And if your body thinks, wow, she's going to kill us, we're going to starve to death, your body can actually shift and break down muscle and build fat instead. Yep.
Well, and I think it's ingrained in our society right now in all regards, and I don't really like the word diet, but there's a bunch of different diets out there that people are buying into. But I think we need to shift that to the purpose of food and how we're fueling ourselves. And I know you just did that episode all about protein, and I think most women don't get enough protein. Or the second part with all of this overtraining is there is a lot of beauty in a refeed. But if we're consistently doing chronic cardio plus not eating enough, it's a disaster for our hormones and for our metabolism.
I look at the level of sickness and illness today in our population. Elisa and I was just talking about this. You know, Elisa works for a company called Metagenics. They call on doctors' offices. And she is constantly astonished by the number of sick people, both working in doctors' offices and physicians themselves.
Yeah.
And it's really a really sad situation when the people you're turning to help you can't even help themselves.
Yeah.
We're lost. Yep. We are really, we're lost. You have a really great quote on your website that I've always loved about the physicians of the future. Isn't that on your website? What does it say?
Yes, it is.
Good. What does it say?
The doctor of the future will no longer treat disease with medicine. I'm trying to think exactly.
Yeah, they will use
heal
food
and treat through food.
Yeah,
through food.
Right, and that's really always been the underlying truth. But the medical orthodoxy doesn't understand it because it's not something they can write a prescription for. But it's very, very sad. It's very, very sad. So I want to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about some of the pitfalls, some of the things that people need to watch out for if they're going to employ the Maffetone approach. Your website is fortheloveoffat.com, correct?
Exactly right.
And you do both nutritional and fitness training consultations from that website. And you are a proponent of the keto or at least low-carb diet, correct?
Yes, I am.
So we'll talk about more of that when we come back. Stay tuned. We're talking with Kristen Trombetta. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. Don't hate us because we feel good.
Welcome back. The single best protein powder in the world, I say that with all humility, is called Thrive, T-H-R-I-V. You can get it at Thrive, THRIVprotein.com. And right now, you can save a bundle of money by using the coupon code COMPARE. You can get a 3-pound jug plus free shipping inside the United States. And I want you to do this. Go to THRIVprotein.com. Have your jug of protein powder there. Look at your label and look at the label of Thrive. And if you're not convinced that Thrive has more intelligent, effective ingredients that will help you reap the benefits that you so desire from your protein powder, then never go back again. But if you do think it's worthy, give it a try. I promise you, there's no thickeners, no artificial sweeteners. There's nothing bad in Thrive at all. Nothing. Only good things. And it's built around the framework of the science of human breast milk, of mother's milk. That's where the formula came from Mother Nature herself. So check it out. That's THRIVprotein.com. Coupon code COMPARE. We're talking with Kristen Trombetta. Her website is fortheloveoffat.com. We're talking about how to effectively lower your resting heart rate, which in turn means you are fitter and in better condition. And that will affect everything you do in life. I'm going to tell you something, guys. Kristen, there's a problem today with guys going to the doctors because they can't perform well in bed anymore. I'm sure you've heard the commercials, right?
I have heard of the commercials, yes.
Okay, and I can tell, I can see you blushing over the phone right now. But I got to tell you something. You want to be better in bed? Guys, get better on the treadmill. Improve your ability to walk further, longer, and faster, and you will be better in bed. Sex is just cardio in the horizontal position if you're doing it right. And that's all it is. So before you go out and you start calling the doctor and he wants to put you on an SSRI because you don't like the fact that you get finished too soon in the bedroom, just start doing cardio. I'm telling you, you'll thank me. You'll go, Carl, I can't believe it. You're right. I'm better in bed now that I can walk a mile without getting winded.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, sorry, I had to go there because it's true. It's true. So are there any pitfalls to following the Maffetone approach? I mean, are there things that people should be careful of? Obviously, you don't want to take it too far too fast. 30 minutes to start out with. Can you eventually start, when your conditioning improves and your heart rate is starting to slow down, can you start bumping it up to an hour?
I definitely think you could. I think two things here. I think the biggest thing that can come into play and negatively with this is our egos, honestly. So for me, I really like to trail run, and I have my heart rate monitor on, and I go up a hill and my heart rate starts spiking, but I get competitive and I don't want to slow down. So I think it is just super important to pay attention to that and be humble. Just be humble with it and trust the process.
So I want to throw this in with that discussion, and just hold your thought. I don't want to derail your thought. So Nate Morrison, who used to do a show with me here on the Superhuman Radio Network called Military Fitness Radio, he trained a lot of people to be in special forces, and he himself was deployed some ridiculous number of times in the 20s. And he was a special ops guy. He was paramilitary. He was the guy that parachuted in behind enemy lines to recover U.S. assets, whether they were people or black boxes from planes that went down or whatever. And he said the number one thing that he would want a guy to do who wanted to be on special forces was the thing that they didn't want to do. They wanted to do CrossFit. They wanted to do ballistic, high-speed, intense stuff. And he would say, no, put your rucksack on and walk 30 miles without getting winded. And when you can walk 30 miles and when you're done, feel like, oh, I could walk another 30 miles, now you're ready because the thing that these guys have to do is walk through the jungles, walk through the desert for tens of miles, and then arrive ready to fight. And you can't do that if when you arrive, you go, I got to sit down, man. I'm exhausted. My feet hurt. My back's hurting me. So this kind of fits into this idea that the boring cardio that people try to avoid, people say, oh, I hate slow, steady state cardio, is actually important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think countering that just a hair, I don't think it has to be boring. Like, I think people can find ways to add it right into their lifestyle, whether it be, I live in Colorado, so we have a lot of hiking. So it could be like hiking or like going and playing with your kids or biking. I think people can find ways to take it off that treadmill. Not that the treadmill is bad, but I think they can find ways to apply it to their life and still have a little fun with it.
That's a good point. That's a very, very good point.
I really believe that.
Now, what about the fact that this type of cardio does in fact recruit free fatty acids to use as fuel? I think there was there's an old wives' tale that you have to walk for about 20 minutes before the body starts to use body fat. Have you ever heard anything like that?
I haven't heard exactly that old wives' tale, but for this, I do believe 30 minutes, and then you're going to really start accessing stored body fat, and those free fatty acids are going to come out, and you're going to use that for fuel. So I really believe that, and that's going to obviously just improve our health, but it's going to help with body composition for people.
And so it's almost like the first 30 minutes is getting you into the zone you want to be in, and now you have equity. And quitting now is kind of like paying your mortgage to the last payment and then defaulting on all that equity. So really, once you get to 30 minutes, then that's when the work begins.
Yeah, and I think it also really depends on your stored glucose, though, too. So I think somebody that's more metabolically flexible and they're a little bit leaner, they're going to be able to form those free fatty acids faster than somebody that has a lot of body fat, plus they are glucose dependent. I think it's going to take them a little bit longer, and that's where I do think smartly training HIIT 1 to 2 days a week, then the maffetone the rest of the days, the 2 to 4 days a week, is where they're going to reap the best success.
So let's talk about that in the context of nutrition then. And theoretically, to also be on a somewhat low carbohydrate diet so that their body is already starting to depend on free fatty acids and ketones as a source of fuel.
Yes. I think those are the people that reap the best results if we're talking aesthetically and faster results with maffetone. So I think you don't have to be strict keto, but I think if you're overall not eating a ton of processed carbs, you're eating good cruciferous veggies and not having a ton of starchy carbs, you're going to reap better results with this maffetone.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, I firmly believe that.
And do you think that, have you seen this approach to cardio actually produce more fit, athletic performance in people? Yes. I think not. I keep mentioning I work with a lot of runners, but then I also work with people that are not runners, and I still have them apply this in their programming. And what's really neat to see is it's basically training your heart and training all those muscles, so you do get stronger overall too. So it's working every aspect, whether it's your strength, whether it's your endurance, and then the aesthetic benefits as well. You know, when I had heart problems and I was 330 pounds and I started to delve into this science of the heart and what helps it remodel, I remember finding a study that showed that there is a governor in the brain that accepts feedback from the body and the heart that drives levels of perceived exertion and exhaustion. And the object of this feedback, this neuronal feedback loop, is to never push the heart into a dangerous place where it can get hurt. And so it could be said that as the heart becomes more efficient, then your brain will allow your body to do more risky, stronger levels of exertion. And I think there's a level of truth to that. At least I've seen it in my own life in periods of time where I was my fittest, and I'm talking about not only fit strength-wise, but fit condition-wise, when I was able to run long distances without it phasing me, participate in any sport I wanted without wondering if I'd be able to keep up. And where I've been more recently, which I'm just digging my way out of this hole of poor conditioning after 2 foot surgeries in 2018, I can tell you that there is absolutely a sense of angst that develops when the heart thinks, or the brain thinks, the heart isn't up for what you're about to do. And I don't think that angst is accidental. I think that's part of this feedback loop that's designed to protect you from killing yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think that's very true. I think our bodies are smart, and I think we have to listen to them and be intuitive then with that training and do the appropriate thing.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. Now, so you said that doing HIIT a couple times a week and then doing the Maffetone approach is an ideal way to handle cardio. So give me an example. So I train right now 5 days a week. I'm taking the weekends off. So if I was training 5 days a week, where would I fit my HIIT cardio in and my Maffetone? Should I be doing it at separate times, or should I doing it before or after I train? How do you see that working?
I think people are going to look at this from any different angle, but I'm a big believer first in strength training. So I think the strength training should be prioritized, and then HIIT should be the conditioning at the end of a strength training session. So putting it there, I do like to, if people are able, to have them do their mass separate from their strength. And I think weekends are a great time to do this. So just doing the 2 Maffetone days, putting one for sure on a weekend and making it fun, going for a hike, going for a bike ride, like I mentioned, something like that. But then, so we're not working the different energy systems in the same session. And that's where I've seen better results for myself and with people. Because I think if you're already so burnt and have worked so hard on those weights and then you're going into Maffetone, I don't think people reap the same benefits.
It may actually alter your level of perceived exertion.
Exactly.
Because you already may be exhausted, and then walking, you're like, oh God, this sucks. I don't want to do this right now. You know.
Well, and I think we're overall just more fatigued, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But I think the HIIT at the end of the strength sessions is a great place to put that, and doing that 1 to 2 days a week. And with that 1 to 2, just listening to your body. If you're super tired, don't do the second day. That's going to be worse for you than it's not going to be good for you.
So give me an example of what you prescribe as a HIIT routine for some of your clients. Like somebody like me, I can't run right now because of my foot and a hamstring injury, but I can definitely do high intensity stuff on an elliptical. So is that adequate for HIIT?
Yeah, I'm a big believer. I just love the basic Tabata. So if people aren't familiar, that's 8 rounds of 20 seconds all-out work, 10-second recovery. I think you can apply that to any cardio machine, or if you wanted to make it a little bit more interesting, what I'll do a lot is pairing like 2 exercises together. So for example, like ball slams for 20 seconds, 10-second recovery, right into kettlebell swings, and doing 4 rounds of each to equal your 8 rounds. But I think people can make it as interesting as you'd like, or if you like a cardio machine, doing it on there. But I think that number one, I think some people don't know what all out means, not to be rude.
Well, yeah, most people will rate themselves. They're like, I got to do this for 20 seconds. I don't want to give it everything. I got to kind of rate myself a little bit, right?
But I think that 20-second mark, like 15 to 20 seconds, is a sweet spot. I think if we go beyond that much, I think people are doing their all out, but then they are not doing it the last 10 seconds or whatever.
Right. You think you can do high intensity interval training with an upper body ergometer if your leg is hurting?
Yeah, I think you totally could. Yeah, I think you could totally do something like that.
Yeah. I guess it's not as effective as having your lower body because you're bearing all this weight. You're kind of sitting on the upper body ergometer and pedaling a bicycle with your hands, basically. But
could you do a rowing machine, or would that pushing and
I don't know. I could try the rowing machine. I just have to see what. I re-injured. I injured my hamstring and then went too fast and re-injured it. And the re-injury is worse than the original injury right now. So I'm just kind of.
Oh darn!
I trained quads today only. I didn't do anything even remotely depending on my hamstrings today. So
wow.
Yeah, but okay. So HIIT twice a week, Maffetone a few times a week, 2 times a week, 5.
I think, well, number one, I think if you're feeling great, you can obviously go on a walk every day.
Yeah.
But I think at minimum 2 days a week, and then just listening to your body, or if you're training for an event, having somebody write you a program and doing it probably 3 to 4 days a week.
And you do that for clients? If somebody contacts you on fortheloveoffat.com, you will help them develop a program?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I do that. And then I have a group that we're prepping for a half marathon together, so they're all doing all of this right now as well.
Wow. Very, very cool. I want to take our last commercial break, and when we come back, we'll wrap it up. We'll just give the bullet points of how to proceed with this style of cardio to lower your resting heart rate and improve your conditioning. Stay tuned.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. We're talking with Kristen Trombetta. We're talking about a mode of cardio that actually will improve your overall fitness, reduce your resting heart rate, and actually sounds like a lot of fun to me because every time I do cardio, I always feel like I got to go faster, I got to go harder, and this is kind of like leisure cardio, isn't it?
Exactly right. Yeah, it's meant to be fun.
So let's just summarize. How does it work? What do people do, and how do they progress with it?
Okay, so summarizing it, it's the Maffetone method, or MAF heart rate. It's a sub-maximal heart rate protocol of not exceeding 180 minus your age for 30-plus minutes, doing it about 2 times per week. And basically what you're going to notice is that you are going to be able to work at a faster pace and go a longer duration in the long run, maintaining that same heart rate. So that 180 minus your age.
Very cool.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it's, people are, I'm telling you right now, people listen to this and they're like, oh, this isn't, I am not turned on by this. This isn't sexy. This isn't exciting. I can't post videos of myself on Instagram crushing it. You know what I mean? Because everybody wants to do today is crush it, grind it. I want to run myself into the wall. Look, I'm going to run into a wall. I'm crushing it. It's like,
Yep.
Sometimes
but
chill.
It's the simple things.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That work.
And think about your mental well-being.
Yep.
You know, everybody's got their foot on the gas pedal. Very few times do they ever pump the brakes.
Yep.
This is kind of like pumping the brakes. So Kristen's website, again, is For the Love of Fat. And I guess that's because of the keto influence, right? For the Love of Fat?
Exactly right. So I'm a big believer in keto and low carb and just what it can do for people.
Yeah, low carb is really the way to go. It really, really is. I mean, there's just so many benefits to low carb. And I know that there's people out there who say they do great on high carb. It's really funny. I know a lot of people who tell me that they have no problem eating a carb-centric diet, and they look okay. Like when you look at them, like they have a small form factor. Let's put it that way. They don't have a lot of muscle. They definitely have a lot more loose skin. But then when you start to talk to them, you find out they have autoimmunity.
Yeah.
They have IBS, or they have ulcerative colitis, or they have a mild case of RA or a mild case of rheumatoid arthritis. And I'm like, and you know, I've stopped trying to convince people. Let me rephrase. I've stopped trying to save people who don't want to be saved. Now I just keep my mouth shut. I've done it several times in the past few days where somebody has said to me, you know, this is what's happening to me. And I just go, wow, I'm sorry to hear that. The old me would have been like, how do you sleep? What do you eat? It doesn't matter. You could tell them this stuff. They won't change. They're going to keep doing what they want to do.
I agree with that comment. I think a lot of people are turned off by keto, so I've tried to sneak attack ways that I can just tweak one thing into their lifestyle, and it's overall going to produce ketones, which is an amazing thing.
Like what?
Well, I think just the meal spacing. I think that's a great one, number one. So just getting people to meal spacing, so not eating as frequently.
Yes.
I think that's a great one first to go with. So that's one that I work with, or carb cycling. Right.
Yeah, no, that works too. But I mean, obviously, you can get just as much joy out of eating something that's low carb. I mean, I don't understand people who have to eat potato. Oh, I have to eat potatoes. Like, really? Like, what if there were no potatoes? Would you starve?
Yep. Well, and I think there's so many great substitutes and great products out there anymore.
Yeah, that you can choose from.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's a short and sweet discussion, but I hope that people start using it. I am absolutely going to start using it. I'm going to start later today. I'm going to go for a 30-minute walk. Oh, so do I have to buy one of those chest band heart monitors? Can I use my Fitbit? Can I use any type of tracking device that measures heart rate? Is that going to be accurate enough, you think?
Yes, I would super encourage some form of a heart rate monitor. So if your Fitbit does it, or if you want to get the chest strap, I think that's the way to do it, though, using something to monitor, not just checking your heart rate yourself.
And then times it by 10, or space it for 6 seconds and then times it by 10 and go, oh, yeah, you really think a heart rate monitor is required?
I really think it makes a big difference here.
And what about caffeine and stuff like that? I got to believe that caffeine and stuff would adversely affect your goal here, right?
I think depending on how much you are having, and if you are caffeine sensitive at all, your heart rate is going to spike a lot faster. And that's where I think the piece of what I mentioned before is starting this maffetone and just like walking for 5 to 10 minutes, your heart rate is not spiking as fast. I think that does make a difference, especially if you've had caffeine.
Do you use caffeine, Kristen?
I do use caffeine.
So Derek doesn't, right? Derek isn't into caffeine.
I know. Derek is very good. I like coffee, and I do like a Bang energy drink.
Oh, me too. So when we were in California recently, I woke up one morning and I told Derek, I said, Derek, man, I am dragging. I need like a Bang energy drink or something. And he goes, well, I think I have a red line from a show that Kristen and I went to recently. So he goes in his bag, and he has this red line, and he's had it for like months. Like, that would not last months in my bag. It would, if I had a red line in my bag, I would reach down there and get it right now and just drink it. And so, and it said that it was 2 servings in the bottle, and I drank the whole bottle. He goes, dude, man, that's a lot of caffeine. I said, yeah, I'm not even going to feel it. I just don't, I'm a bottomless pit when it comes to caffeine. It's unbelievable.
He told me this. Yep, I'm trying to limit mine now because of him.
Yeah. I think he's smarter. I think he's smarter than both of us. I think I need to find a way to get off caffeine completely.
I think he is smarter.
Yeah. All right, well, listen, thank you so much for making time. I know you have lots of clients at this time of day, so moving your schedule around and being on the show today, Kristen.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Carl. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. See you soon, okay?
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Okay, and we'll see you about it tomorrow with more Superhuman Radio. Thank you for listening today.